This is our much awaited, even for me, much awaited second installment into the glories of Lord Sri Nityananda Prabhu. So, like I said, we must start with our Mangalacharna first. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So I'm so glad to be with everyone, to be able to see as many of you as I possibly can. That's wonderful. And like I said, this is something that I've been looking forward to for the past 2 weeks and even before that. So we spoke kind of briefly, which I think anything under however long this yuga is, 432,000 years, something like that, right? So anything under that is kind of brief to speak about Nityananda Prabhu. He's such a wonderful personality, one that is absolutely necessary to our spiritual lives, and to our Krishna consciousness movement. This Kirtan movement and this Kirtan revolution would be nothing without the two kings, Nitai Gora. So because Nityananda Trayodasi is coming in just a few days now, like 2.5, I thought, okay, why not? Why not speak about Lord Nityananda? And because one session is not at all enough to cover the glories and wonderful attributes of Lord Nityananda, I thought let's dedicate 2 sessions to it. Even 2 sessions is not enough, but we'll see how much we can bring in. So last session we spoke about Lord Nityananda. We spoke about his glorious advent. We spoke about his childhood pastimes, some of them. We spoke about how he was so engrossed in the pastimes of Sri Krishna and in performing these dramas of the Ramayana along with his friends that he was even overtaken by unconsciousness when playing the part of Lakshman, and Lakshman is hit with the Shakti weapon of Ravan. And so he is fallen unconscious. His friends have to go and make all kinds of arrangements in order to gather him back to consciousness. His parents and all of the inhabitants of Ekachakradam, a little small village where Lord Nityananda resided, had his childhood pastimes. Everyone is completely flabbergasted and baffled, right? And so we've spoken about how his friends were able to bring him back to external consciousness. And then we spoke about how there was a sannyasi who comes and resides in Ekachakra for some time, and just as he's leaving, his father, Hadai Pandit, Nityananda Prabhu's father, says the fateful words, "Oh my dear Brahman, crest jewel of the twice born, how can I serve you? Tell me anything, and it's yours. And the sannyasi says, I'm a traveling mendicant, a wanderer in search of sacred truths, but I don't yet have a companion to travel with me. Give me your son, Nitai. His parents are thunderstruck, but what can they do? His father had already promised. And so Nityananda Prabhu goes on pilgrimage for some 2 decades, somewhere around about 20 years. And then he goes to Vrindavan. And Vrindavan happens to be one of the last places he visits. And this is kind of where we ended last session. So now we'll pick up there. Nityananda Prabhu has now traveled to so many different places, South India, different parts. Now he's in Vrindavan. And it is stated in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat that Lord Nityananda looks all over in all of the temples, but he feels as though something's missing. The deities still stand here, the temples are still here, but where's Krishna? And he hears a whispering, a little murmuring through the most secret parts of Vrindavan that Krishna is not here yet. But he has taken his birth in Navadvip. Krishna is now in Bengal. And so with that whispering running through his mind, surcharging all of him, Nitai decides that's where he needs to go. He goes to Navadvip, and then as he arrives in Navadvip, he stays at a devotee's house called Nandanacharya. And one day, Lord Vishwambar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai, who is called Nimai and Vishwambar at this point because he has not yet taken up this renounced order, this sannyas lifestyle yet. So he's called Nimai and Vishwambar, and he comes to all of his associates one day and he says, my friends, I've had the most extraordinary dream. In that dream, there was a chariot that arrived in front of my house. And in this dream, I heard a constant, Nimai, Nimai, is this the house of Nimai Pandit? Oh, Nimai. And I came out and I saw this wonderful, majestic chariot bearing the flag with a palm tree on it. And that palm tree had wonderful fruits on top of it. And I looked, and in this chariot, there was a majestic personality. He was tall. His arms were very long. His complexion was golden tinged with red. But he held a plow on his shoulder. And then he held a staff in his other hand. And he was calling out in a loud voice, is this the house of Nimai Pandit? But somehow or other, no one could understand him. One of the reasons no one could understand him, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur says, is that Nitai had learned Hindi, Brijbas Hindi, while in Vrindavan. And so he comes to Bengal yelling out in Brijbas Hindi. But everybody in Bengal speaks Bengali. So now everybody's a little confused, but Nimai understands everything. So he asks, who are you? Oh, most wonderful personality. I feel as though you could hold up the entire earth. In fact, this Nitai is none other than Anantashesh. And in that incarnation of Anantashesh, he does just that. He holds up the burden of the entire earth. And so Nimai says, who are you? Nitai says, don't you recognize me? Very well. Even if you don't recognize me yet, you will soon. I have come just to find you. But now is not the time. And so before finding out who this very special personality was, I woke up. And so Nimai sends so many of his associates to go and find this Nitai. Everybody is wondering, who is this Nitai? But Lord Vishwambara sent us to find him. So they go and they search for hours. Say about 8 or 9 hours they're searching. Finally they come back to Lord Vishwambara and they say, we've searched everywhere. We've searched all over. We've gone door to door. But we cannot find this personality that you speak of. Nimai thinks, this is Nitai's mercy. He's showing that unless he decides, no one can uncover the truth about him. What a mysterious personality we have. And so Nimai says, don't worry, I'll go. I'll come with you. And they all go to the house of Nandanacharya. And some say that Nitai was sitting inside, and some say that Nitai was sitting on the veranda. So maybe on the veranda inside. And Nimai comes into the house of Nandanacharya. And this is the first meeting of Nitai Gauranga. So many of us have been to different temples and different programs, and you may have heard us singing, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gauranga. This is what this is all about. The two founders of our Kirtan revolution. And prior to this meeting, Kirtan had not been a very public event. In fact, with the ruling government at the time, Kirtan was a heavily suppressed event. And even though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advented in order to spread this Kirtan movement, up until that point, these meetings had been carefully held at the house of Srivas Pandit and after dark. So they were very, very secret. But now that Nitai had been uncovered, discovered, and reunited with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this meeting is so incredibly wonderful that it could take up a lecture all on its own. And I have to be brief in my descriptions if I want to get to all of the most wonderful, juicy parts of so many of these different pastimes. But this is the very beginning of our Harinam Sankirtan movement as we come to know it. This meeting. And Nitai asks, where have you been? I've been looking for you for decades. I traveled everywhere. I went to Vrindavan, and I said, where is Krishna? Everyone said he's not here. I said, well, where could he be? I said, he's gone to Bengal. And so I rushed here as fast as I could to find you. Where have you been? I was waiting for you. I've been right here, just waiting for you. And the two brothers, they embrace one another. All of the devotees are completely astonished. And at that embrace, Nitai himself falls unconscious. And Nimai takes Nitai onto his lap. And so many of the devotees there, Gadadhar Pandit included, they say things like, usually it is Lord Vishnu who rests upon the coils of Anantashesh. But now it looks like the roles have been reversed in the sweetest way. And now Anantashesh is resting on the lap of Lord Vishnu. What a sight we've beheld this day. The joy of the devotees know no bounds after the two come back to external consciousness. And they've gotten their emotions somehow under control just a little. They begin to perform the first public kirtans, singing and dancing with one another in a way that no one has ever seen before. This is our Sankirtan movement. This is the joy that we derive from coming together, chanting with one another, hearing these wonderful glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and all of their wonderful beloved associates. This is the mercy of Adi Guru, the primeval, the very first, the source of all spiritual teachers. the source of all Guru Tattva, the source of all spiritual truth is held there within Lord Nityananda. And as Nityananda, this Guru Tattva, this spiritual teacher, the source of all teachers, is so incredibly compassionate and simple-hearted. They say Nitai would act simply. And they use this word simple. His devotion was characterized by its simplicity. And so he would very often take the instructions of Lord Chaitanya literally, seriously. He would often act in very mysterious ways, which we'll hear about in just 2 minutes. And he would do anything and everything in order to show that he was only subordinate to the will of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He had given his entire life, his being, his heart, his soul, everything to the very will of Nimai. So, one day, Nimai says to his devotees, he says, here's what we'll do. Now we will go door to door. Tell everyone you meet about the glories of Sri Krishna. Tell them that Krishna is your mother. Krishna is your father. Krishna is the very treasure of your life. He is the wealth of everyone's heart. He is the joy that we've all been searching for. Tell everyone you meet this essential truth and make sure that they're able to chant the holy names. Tell them the glories of the holy names. In whatever way you possibly can, by hook or by crook, tell everyone you meet about this greatest gift of Sri Krishna Nam Kirtan. And so he sends them sometimes in pairs, sometimes in groups. And he sends Nityananda along with Haridas. Nityananda and Haridas go door to door. Now this Nitai, who is none other than Sri Balaram. Sri Balaram has the ability to crush the ego with nothing more than a thought. Sri Balaram is the source of all strength. His very name means that he is the source of all strength. This Bala, this spiritual strength and material strength alike, all find its source within him. And now this very same Balaram has taken any divine ego and has cast it aside in order to go door to door with folded palms, begging regular people to chant the holy names. This same Balaram who was able to kill a donkey demon, this same Balaram who was able to order Sri Krishna, this same Balaram who was said to protect Krishna like the eyelid protects the eye. This is the Balaram who has now come in the form of Nityananda, who's going door to door begging, please, whatever you do, just chant the holy names. It said if he would even see the glimmer, just the faintest trace of an emotion within the heart of someone, that was all that he needed. That's all the faith that was required. And now this Nitai would say, don't worry about anything else. I will deliver you from everything. Just take this name of Krishna as your life and soul. That's the only thing that I need to make me happy. My Guru Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj, has given so many lectures on the glories of Lord Nityananda. And in so many of them, he stresses this point that Nityananda Prabhu would take a straw between his teeth, which is the ultimate expression of humility. Straw from the street that people are walking over. This is the Nitai that would take that straw, place it between his teeth and say, just chant the holy names, whoever you are, in whatever condition of life you find yourself. No matter what you think you are, no matter what caste, creed, no matter what, please just chant this holy name. Just chant this Maha Mantra, and it will absolutely transform your life. This same Balaram killed someone with a similar blade of grass. There was a sage, Brahmaharshan Sutta, and Balaram walks into an assembly with this sage. Everyone stood up, and the sage didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. He simply did not stand. That was enough of an offense for Balaram. And he took a blade of grass, and he simply touched him with it. He didn't have to throw it, just touched him. And the man died. This is the Balaram that can kill anybody with a thought, no problem. The source of all Vishnus. And now he's coming begging, door to door. And if we think that Romaharshan Sutta did not appreciate Nitai's presence then, these people definitely didn't appreciate Nitai's presence. They were not giving him all respect. They were thinking, who is this madman? Who is this person? Where have you come from? No one even knows who you are. This Nitai would say, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If just once you can take to heart the order of my Nimai, the order of my Lord Vishwambar, if you can once utter the name of Gauranga, don't worry. I'll handle everything else. I often think about this when I am procrastinating with japa. When I'm procrastinating on diving deeply into the holy name. My Lord Nitai, out of this incredible compassion, this incredible surge of mercy, goes door to door, and yet somehow or other, I remain too busy. How unfortunate to know the glories of the holy name, to have even experienced some of the joy that comes from chanting the holy name, to understand intellectually how this chanting of the holy name has actually saved my life and bettered my existence. And yet I remain too busy. It remains a daily struggle, a pulling of my mind in the right direction. Come on now, let's do what's good for us. Tirelessly, Nitai would go out day after day with Haridas. It didn't matter how many refusals he received. This was not a deterrent. And in the mood of this Guru Tattva, we can understand how Srila Prabhupada would also go to so many different places. It didn't matter how many refusals. It wasn't a deterrent. He was spurred on by the enthusiasm of the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, imbibing this quality of Adi Guru, imbibing this quality of ultimate compassion, seeing that souls were in a condition of life that was just filled with suffering, often brought on by our own minds, unable to get free from this entangling web of suffering brought out from here and then brought into our physical world. Knowing that there is a cure and a solution. Thinking, if that's my life's work, then that is enough. But let me just, if I can just enlighten one person enough so that they will want to become a pure devotee, so that they will strive to become a pure devotee, then my job is done. Srila Prabhupada would say, no matter how many disciples there were, if even one of you becomes sincere, that's enough. He would pray that his disciples would become even better devotees than he was. Usually, the teacher is not praying for the student to surpass them. Once we get some level of authority, we're thinking how to hold on to it for dear life. Our Srila Prabhupada is praying to pass the baton, praying that one of his disciples will become a more pure devotee than him. Now, in my thought process, in my estimation, I'm thinking, impossible. But none of this was an impossible sounding idea for Srila Prabhupada. He had such a vision that no, this will happen. So, Nitai would go door to door, and one day, they saw a large crowd and a commotion, hustle and bustle, and as they got closer, they saw two large personalities, huge people, also really dirty, but very large. And they were making a very large commotion in a drunken state, yelling, mumbling, cursing, a lot of cursing. So, like, you know, a normal day in New York, if you've ever been to New York, it's kind of normal. Right? So, you know, everyday occurrence. But this was a little bit different. And so Nitai asks, Haridas, they ask, who are they? And the inhabitants around, oh, no. These two personalities were born in a Brahmin family. And they were coming from a really good Brahmin family, but somehow, due to bad association, this is what they've become. They torture Brahmins and they kill cows. They've taken to eating beef and drinking all day. No one goes past them unscathed, and so then no one goes past them. Everyone goes the other way. They go inside their homes, they lock the doors, they stay off the streets when these two come around. Previously, they were named Jagadananda and Madhavananda, but now they've simply come to be known as Jagai and Madai. All day, they are drunk. Stay away from them as much as you can. Everyone around gave this advice. Whether they agreed with Nitai's approaches to preaching or not, the advice was the same. If you value your life, go home. And so it says in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat that when Nityananda Prabhu heard the description of these two cousin brothers, Jagai and Madai, it is said that Nityananda's heart melted. How astonishing. How many of us would walk through the streets and you see someone ranting to themselves and they look really homeless and they don't smell great? How many of us would think, and not just homeless, but violent, they're a danger to themselves and others. How many of us would think, oh, but this is Nitai. Nitai hears the direction, go home, stay off the streets, come back when it's safe. And he thinks, we should talk to them. We should speak to them. Right now, these two personalities are in such a precarious situation that whenever people see them, they consider themselves so contaminated that they go and they take a bath in the Ganga. However, if I can get them to follow the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if I can get them just once to listen to and chant the holy names, then I'll be able to turn their entire situation around. And in doing so, their situation will change from people who Having once seen them, they want to go take a bath in the Ganga to purify themselves. Now people will think, having once been in their association, they will then feel as though they've already taken that bath in the Ganga. I have to do something. So thinking this way, he turns to Haridas and says, Haridas, what do you think? And Haridas says, what can I say? I'm at your mercy. And I've already understood how much of a madman you really are. You are deceiving me by giving me any sort of free will in this situation. I have to simply follow you wherever you go. Nitai laughs. Wonderful. Let's go closer. And so Nitai and Haridas venture closer to these violent drunken people. And Nitai is calling out, Krishna's your mother, Krishna's your father, Krishna's the very treasure of your life. Just once chant this holy name of Krishna and watch how your life is transformed. Like the most awesome salesman that anybody's ever seen. These two personalities hear this other commotion, which is the antithesis to their commotion. And they look up. Chaitanya Bhagavat says, with bloodshot eyes, they look up in rage. Who is interrupting our daily activities? And they see that they look like two Brahmins, two renunciates. Seeing that they are two renunciates or two holy people, two spiritual seekers, they start to mutter and grumble and then yell in rage, catch them. Now, of course, like, who are they yelling to? Each other at this point, because there's no one else to join in their crazy activities. Catch them, they yell. And they go running after Nitai and Haridas. Nitai and Haridas wisely begin running away from Jagai and Madai. So now they're running. And as they're running, Nitai says to Haridas, well, what a fine mess we've gotten into today. Who could have ever thought that this would have happened? I can't believe it. I mean, can you believe that these two are running after us like this? I think we might just die. Who knows what will happen to us today? And Haridas is a little less humored by this situation, and he says, Don't act so innocent. You know, a fine mess we've gotten ourselves into. This is all your fault. And Nitai said, well, my fault? How can you blame me? It's not me. I am simply following marching orders. I got them from your supreme person. That Nimai who sent us out on this excursion going door to door, no one's ever gotten this directive before. I suppose Jehovah's Witness hadn't made their way over to Bengal at that time yet. So he says, no one's ever gotten this directive before, but we're going door to door and I did talking to people. He told me to do this, so I'm just doing what I'm told. How can you say it's my fault? And they're continuing this conversation as they're running from danger and possible certain death that day, with these two mad people yelling after them all kinds of profanities and threats and all kinds of things. Come back. Let me show you how we really entertain guests. So they're running, and Haridas says, you know, once upon a time, I was captured and beaten in 22 marketplaces. But I happened to be saved by the mercy of Shri Krishna. And somehow, after living through, after surviving all of that, I now come to the place where today I am now going to be killed because of your crazy schemes. I was saved by Krishna, and now today I'm going to be killed thanks to you. Why? Why would I have survived all of that? Just to arrive at this point. Nitai's laughing. I didn't do it. Talk to your crazy Vishwambar. He sent me. All I can do is follow orders. And so they run, continuing their mock fight, says Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. They arrive back at the house of Lord Chaitanya, and they're out of breath and they're panting and they're looking to see if they've been followed, and Jagai and Madai are too intoxicated to follow that long. So they were kind of running in circles, baffled, trying to find them. And in some cases it says when they could not find them, they started beating up each other, pulling each other's hair, dragging each other down to the ground. And so when they get into the assembly of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Vishwambar generally asks each day, how were the day's events? And so as he asks, Nitai says, well, a strange thing happened today. We saw two brothers, and they were in such need of your mercy and help. I thought, let me go and carry out the order that you've given me. But we were chased, and we almost lost our life, but we made it back here, once again due to your mercy. But I do believe that in a few days' time, your mercy will overtake their sinful activities, and they'll be transformed. Haridas is listening to this entire relating of the day's activities, and he happens to be near his dear friend Advaita Acharya. And he tells Advaita, he says, you know, I have issues with this Nitai. In fact, I have daily problems with Nitai. I don't tell any of this to Lord Vishwambar, but I'll tell you. So some days he goes and he finds the most crocodile-infested part of the Ganga. And just as he sees the crocodiles that are infesting the Ganga, he looks and he takes a big smile, and then he takes a run and he leaps into the Ganga. And I'm calling after him, Nitai, Nitai, get out of the water! What are you doing? There's crocodiles! And he begins wrestling with them. And then just as I think, how am I supposed to save him? He gets out of the grasp of the crocodiles, but do you think he would come back on shore? No. He floats downstream, pretending to be dead. What am I supposed to do with him? Then if that's not enough, sometimes he'll see a young boy on the banks of the Ganga. And all of a sudden, with no warning, he'll go charging at the young boy, yelling at him. Who knows what? He scares him halfway to death. And then the young boy runs to his parents. And then the parents come, and they're angry, and they bring sometimes, instruments, weapons and things, and they're yelling. But by then, Nitai has run away. And who's left for the parents to yell at but me? So now the parents are yelling at me, and what can I do? What can I say? Oh, my dear sir, please forgive me. You see, my companion happens to be a madman, but what can I do? Just please don't take anything personally. Sometimes he'll see a young maiden, and she'll be performing her worship, and he'll walk right up to her and say, oh, beautiful eyed one, how about you and I get married? And when she looks and she says, who are you? This is not any way to approach a civilized girl like this. And then she goes and she gets her parents, and then the parents come, but Nitai's already left by that time, and who's left for the parents to yell at but me? I get yelled at every day. This is an example and an exercise in how all of Navadvip can come and yell at me because of this madman. Now today he's seen these two drunkards and he thinks, let me go and dance with them. Let me go chant with them. And then I almost lose my life. Every day I am calling out in surrender to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu out of fear that I might be killed by my association with this crazy person. What am I to do? And yet Nimai every day sends me out once again with this person. Advaita Acharya says, yeah, it's typical. What do you mean typical? What are you saying? Is that what? I mean, can you really blame him? Nitai is always intoxicated with love of God. Of course, he's going to attract other intoxicated people. This is his kind of person. So this is what he does. But what I also know is that this Nitai can deliver anyone. And if he says he has set his sights on these two brothers, you just watch. Soon I am sure they will be welcomed into the ranks of devotees that are so dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, I can't very well leave this story off here, so since it's a Saturday, I'm hoping that you'll bear with me as I go slightly over time. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, what do you think we should do? Nitai says, you leave these two to me. I think that I can still make some difference in their lives. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, so be it. And so for many days, he would see Jagai and Madai. And he would kind of ignore them as much as possible. It says that one day, because these two brothers somehow happened to make a makeshift home on the banks of the Ganga. And they were always drunk, but somehow they were close enough to Lord Chaitanya's home and where he would conduct his pastimes that they would be able to hear the Kirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How astonishing is this? The Kirtans that previously were only held in Srivas Pandit's house at night, with a select few, hand-picked by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and no one else was allowed entry, not even Srivas's mother-in-law. Right, so family members excluded. Now these Jagai and Madai, they were on the banks of the river, able to hear the Kirtan that was never heard before. How merciful is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, following the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. How merciful is our Lord. So, they would often hear the chanting. Sometimes they would dance around drunkenly. And once when Mahaprabhu came to take his bath, they saw him and they said, hey, you Nimai Pandit, you sing so nicely. We've heard this singing coming. You should sing the Mangala Chandi. You should sing all the auspicious songs to the goddess Chandi. We ourselves will go and bring all the paraphernalia and make arrangements for this. You should sing Durga songs. I don't know if any of you have ever been a Kirtan leader, but this actually happens a lot. You sing something, and then you get all these requests coming in. Like nobody's taken into account your mood or your personality or anything. But you get all these requests coming in. You should sing all the Tulsidas bhajans of Lord Ram. Go right now. Like, I understand. I'm also not a jukebox. But so, in reading this, I kind of understand. Oh, it finds its original place in the pastimes of the Lord. Everything is there. So, they'd say, you should sing the songs to the goddess Durga. We would very much like to hear that. Mahaprabhu simply ignored them. And he went on about his way. And so one day, Lord Nityananda arrives again on the scene along with Haridas, going along their usual days of Harinam, door-to-door, Sankirtan. And once again, they see these two, Jagai and Madai. And Jagai and Madai see them. And they say, who are you and where are you going? Nitai says, I am a servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I say, what is your name? He says, I am called Avadut, which means spiritually crazy. There's not much. Sometimes you try to look for a different translation. There isn't. It means spiritually crazy. It says, I'm called Avadut. It's a person who does not care. Simply doesn't care about the rest of the external world. He's so caught up in this spiritual revelation that everything else fades away. Shri Radha Murlidhara ki jai. Shri Gaura Chandra ki jai. So, Nitai says, I'm called Avadut. But now, this Jagai and Madai, They are so angry. And they are so incredibly enraged simply by the presence of Nitai and Haridas, that this Madai, he picks up a piece of an earthen wine vase, right? This wine container. But if you've ever seen those, they call them amphoras, right, in Greek and Roman times. And they're big. And they were used to hold wine. So big like this. This is a very hefty piece of clay. Almost like stone. And he picks up this piece of clay and he hurls it at Nitai. It hits him in the head and Nitai immediately begins to bleed. Now, at this point, Madai thinks, now that should do it. But Nitai is not deterred. He's still saying, just chant the name of Krishna. Just chant the name of Krishna. It's okay. Just chant the name of Krishna. Madai sees, you're not deterred? Not done yet? And he wants to beat Nitai again. Jagai stops him. What are you doing? Why have you done this? What will hitting this person accomplish? Now, previously they had been chasing them down with threats to beat them. So now, I often am wondering, what is it in that moment that makes Jagai have this change of heart? It seemed as though he'd wanted to beat him previously. What is it about this moment? Is it just that there's such incredible compassion emanating out of Nitai in waves like an ocean? Is it that he is not at all deterred by this personal harm? Is it that he's so willing, even after all of that, to say it doesn't matter? Whatever you've done does not matter. Come and accept Krishna, and that's all that matters. Whatever it is, Jagai is overwhelmed and saying, how could you have done this? He's simply a renunciate. He's done nothing to us. Stop this insane activity now. Stop it. Meanwhile, devotees have run to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to tell him what has happened. And when Mahaprabhu arrives on the scene, there is chaos. And there's a short piece now that I have to read to you because I spent a long time working on this dramatic narration, adapted from the pages of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. The sky grew dark and light at the same time. Whatever the weather had been moments ago was inconsequential. Massive clouds now began to move in at an alarming rate. But no one was looking at the clouds. Everyone was looking upward, but not because of any climate change or external meteorological occurrence. It looked like lightning flashed behind the enormous clouds overhead, or maybe as if the clouds themselves were made of lightning. It was impossible to tell. Flashes blinded everyone in attendance, and many hands moved to shield their sensitive eyes. There was a roaring sound that came from above, but shook the earth as well. Standing before everyone was the most beautiful storm anyone had ever seen. His chest heaving with each breath he took, one slender golden arm was raised high in the sky, index finger extended. His wide eyes, extending almost to his ears, were reddish, but not from love now. Now they were red with anger, and his entire form trembled with rage. The roaring sound continued from the sky, but now his deep voice boomed along with it. "Chakra, Chakra," he called, and those around him began to huddle amongst themselves for protection. That one word snapped Nitai to attention. "No," he whispered, "this could not happen, not like this. This was all wrong. This shouldn't have been happening." His head whipped up as fast as it could, encumbered still by his hands, braced on either side of it. A trail of blood made its way from the side of his forehead, down his arm, even with his hands pressed firmly against the wound. A scarlet vine climbed down his arm, growing dangerously close to the elbow. where it would try to drip off onto the ground. But this blood could not touch the earth. If it did, it would create a reaction more terrible than anyone cared to think about at the moment. Determined, Nitai tucked his arm against his body, catching the blood and wiping it on his upper chudder and against his torso, on anything so that it would not fall. He had to do something. In response to the call of Lord Gauranga, an incredible pressure began to descend on all those around. Whoever had still been standing was driven to their knees by the weight of that pressure, and the wind whipped around them mercilessly. Nitai pressed forward against the pressure, just as stubborn as the Lord's anger was. "Mahaprabhu," he called, but his voice was muted against the double roaring, both the one in the sky and the one coming from Nitai's golden Lord, who was so used to singing sweetly. Mahaprabhu made a move to lunge forward, and the two men before him cowered away, yelling out, but their own screams were muted by all the commotion as well. Nitai had to move faster. Reasoning with him would not work. No one had ever seen the Lord like this, and Nitai knew the Lord better than he knew himself. As Nitai looked at the two men now scared into sobriety and pleading for their lives, he felt a twinge of guilt. He had caused this problem. Now he would fix it. When Mahaprabhu made a move again, Nitai dove forward. His knees skidded across the dusty path, his cloth flying behind him in the wild wind. His hair blew back from his face, and he felt the pressure against all of him. But that pressure didn't try to subdue him. As if the pressure and the Lord's anger had its own form, that pressure acknowledged Nitai's presence, appraising him with a subtle but unmistakably deadly power. The anger of the Lord recognized Nitai, and that same anger, which found its ultimate source within the form of Lord Anantadev, from whom all the Rudras, who destroy the universes, emanate, that anger recognized Nitai, recognized him as belonging heart and soul to Lord Vishwambar. Instead of fighting Nitai, this anger sought to wrap itself around him in order to protect him. With an incredible pulsing light, the chakra of the Lord appeared. Gasps and shouts accompanied the appearance of the chakra, and the alarmed yells of Jagai and Madai filled the air. They called out for help, for mercy, for anyone to listen to them. But the Lord refused to hear them. Before Mahaprabhu could move again, Nitai caught him around the waist. "No, my Lord," Nitai cried, his face pressed into the Lord's side. His attention finally caught. Mahaprabhu rocked as Nitai wrapped his arms around the Lord's waist and held on tightly. One large hand was placed on Nitai's head, his face guided gently upward. Nitai wasn't sure what he must have looked like, but he hoped it would be enough to quell the Lord's incredible anger as he looked up into Mahaprabhu's eyes. Their dark eyes locked with one another for a moment, and Nitai thought that might be enough. But just that quickly, Mahaprabhu's gaze was wandering across his face. Coming to rest on the wound, Mahaprabhu's eyes grew wide again with outrage. Nitai shook from the force of Mahaprabhu's emotions, love, protection, and an all-devouring rage mixed together to create a firestorm of emotions. Nitai called out again, "My Lord, I'm fine. I am. See for yourself." Not daring to unclench his arms from around the Lord's waist, Nitai did the only thing he could do to convince his Lord. When Mahaprabhu's eyes searched his own again for the truth, squinting, judging, Nitai smiled. A gentle, soothing, safe smile. In that smile, he invested all of the love he had for Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu took a breath. Nitai knew he had one chance to save these two men, and he might not get another. "Although I'm bleeding, I feel no pain." Nitai's smile held steadfast. Mahaprabhu's thumb brushed against his wound, gently smearing away blood, and that same hand tenderly held Nitai's chin. Mahaprabhu's eyes darkened with anguish, looking at Nitai's face and blood-soaked clothes. Nitai sought to distract the Lord. When Madai tried to hit me, this Jagai tried to stop him. My Lord, please spare them. Please, this is not the way. Oh Lord, give these two souls to me. Nitai's eyes brightened as he petitioned for the two men who were stunned and shaking with fear. The chakra held its ground where it was, now between Mahaprabhu and Nitai, and the two men cowering in fear, looming ominously. Mahaprabhu gazed into Nitai's eyes for a moment, Nitai nodding and assuring the Lord that not only was his story true, but that he was fine. Finally, the Lord's eyes softened, and Nitai released his grip on the Lord's waist a little. As the world held its breath, Mahaprabhu slowly lowered his hand. With an almost imperceptible flick of his wrist, he sent his chakra away, back from the realm it had come from. All around them released a collective sigh, and Nitai closed his eyes for a moment in utter relief. Mahaprabhu's eyes grew wide as though he was just now registering all that Nitai has said. He questioned if all that Nitai said could be true, a silent conversation passing between the two lords who undoubtedly shared one soul between them. Nitai only continued to smile and nod, pleading with the Lord to believe him. Ever so gently, Mahaprabhu disentangled himself from Nitai's grasp and approached the two culprits. For a moment, Mahaprabhu almost looked as if his face were made of stone, as if he were emotionless. But it lasted for but a moment, and then Lord Vishwambar was speaking. You. His voice was so low one couldn't tell if the Lord was still feeling murderous or not. Mahaprabhu directed his attention to Jagai, and before Nitai could think to move again, Lord Vishwambar reached down, easily lifted the large, burly man, and had him in his arms in a tight embrace. Devotees whispered, Hari Bol. Onlookers gasped and exclaimed, and Jagai wept. Jagai surrendered his weight and large frame over to the embrace of the Lord and was racked with sobs as if a great dam had broken within, deep in his heart. May Krishna bless you always. Mahaprabhu pronounced his judgment on Jagai, and devotees around them now shouted, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, hearing the Lord's merciful decision. Jagai tried to compose himself. He tried to clasp his palms together with reverence. He tried to speak, but found that even breathing was difficult. All he could do was accept the compassionate embrace of Lord Vishwambar and receive mercy and blessings that he was absolutely sure he did not deserve. This is the mercy of Nitai Gauranga. Nitai pleaded for the mercy of those people that had struck him. He pleaded for Mahaprabhu to give them the ultimate happiness, a blessing never before seen, never before attained. Narottam Das Thakur says that these two brothers are none other than Krishna and Balaram, and they are the most munificent and most compassionate beings come to inundate the world with love of God, and Jagai and Madai are witnesses. They have become the witness, and they have become the very proclamation of this mercy. Mahaprabhu says, may you be blessed by Krishna always. You have saved my Nitai. You have become more dear to me than my own life. It's a person who murdered Brahmins, did unspeakable, horrific things to women. They were drunk all day, every day. This person, in just one moment, Mahaprabhu says, may you achieve Krishna. May you get Krishna's mercy always. Madai is now emboldened. He says, O Lord, we have been like one soul in two bodies. Whatever he did, I did. Whatever I've done, he's done. So whatever he gets, I should get. How do you deliver him and not me? Now, unfortunately, the Lord is murderous again. You have caused all this bloodshed to my Nitai. There is nothing I can do for you. There is nothing even the holy name can do for you. You have committed Vaishnava Aparad. You have sealed your own fate. This Madai is thinking, this Jagai and Madai is thinking, there must be something I can do. Lord Vishwambar turns his attention to Nitai. Nitai, only if you accept him can I do anything. Nitai rushes forward to embrace Madai. There is no offense. I take no offense into account. I'm not even angry. And so our beloved Lochan Das Thakur has sung, Akroda Paramananda Nityananda Rai. Our Nitai never gets angry. Or at least not for very long. Our Nitai never gets angry. He never takes any offense personally. This is all he wants, is to bring people to the greatest treasure and the greatest bliss of their lives. In fact, it's in his name. Nityananda, bringing eternal bliss and pleasure wherever he goes. This is our Nitai. Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj says that the name Nitai means take it, take this. And in this way, Lord Nityananda is traveling everywhere throughout the universe with his arms outstretched saying, take this mercy. Take this holy name. Take the love of Lord Gauranga. Take it. It's free. Wholesale. Like Costco. Just take it. If only we could follow the instructions to the mind in this wonderful Nitai Padakamala. If we could grasp the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda and hold on for dear life. That's all we need. This is the way to conquer the heart of Mahaprabhu. Lord Nityananda's mercy is even more far-reaching and more munificent than the most munificent Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We celebrate Mahaprabhu often singing, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goda Tushe Namaha. Mahavadanya, the most munificent, the most generous, the most giving, the most compassionate, the most open-hearted Lord. Who could be more munificent? Nitai. Our wonderful, ecstatic madman who doesn't take into account any offense, who has adventures, and who is willing to round up and wrangle up all of these wayward souls just like us, the ones in New York that really, really need it. Wrangling all of us up in his wonderful adventures, saying, come with me. Let me show you the greatest gift in all of creation. And I'll give it to you. What they say is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said this Nitai has opened up the marketplace of the holy name. What is the currency? Nitai says just the smallest amount of faith. That's it. A little faith that it might work. So let us take this wonderful pastime into our hearts. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur gives a beautiful benediction that anyone, let's see if I can read it. Okay, first of all, whosoever has faith in the activities of the Lord will attain the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And then finally, Lord Gaurachandra will certainly deliver anyone who hears with faith the deliverance of the two big sinners, Jagai and Madai. Lord Gaurachandra, who is residing right here in New York at the Bhakti Center, will certainly deliver anyone who hears with faith the deliverance of these two big sinners, Jagai and Madai. And they were absolutely delivered, brought into the inner the inner core group of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's trusted associates. Sri Chaitanya revealed four-arm forms to them, gave them all kinds of benedictions, and told the devotees, these two are mine now. If you feed them, know for certain that you are giving food to Sri Krishna. If you please them, know that Sri Krishna is pleased. But if you blaspheme them, know that your fate is worse than theirs would have been. Know that there is nothing that you can save, that can save you if you blaspheme these two, Jagai and Madai. 5 minutes ago, they were the worst. And now Mahaprabhu is proclaiming, these two are mine. They belong to me. Imagine what hope there is for us. Because no matter how bad we think we are, I do not think our daily activities included all the things that they did. Have any of us murdered anybody today? No? Well, then you're already better. There's already the ultimate hope. Now, it's like 8:30 in the morning almost. Anybody go and torture any Brahmins today? No? You're already better. There's already hope. We're already on the road to redemption. If Mahaprabhu can do that for these two, from then until the end of time, just think what he can do with our lives. If Nityananda's mercy can transform that, just think about what his mercy can do to our lives. If we just have a little, just the slightest hint of faith that it might work, our lives will be transformed. It's a promise from all of our spiritual teachers. All we have to do is just believe in it a little bit. The witness and the testifying prophecy is Jagai and Madai. Let their testifying, let that stand for all of us as a promise of what is possible. Srila Nityananda Avadut Prabhu ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Vaishnav Thakur ki jai, Panchatattva ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all so much, all of my dear devotees and friends, for bearing with me, for having me with you, and for allowing me to excitedly share the drama and the passion and the magnificence and the glories of the pastimes of Srila Nityananda Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Achyuta Gopi Dasi Prabhu. Achyuta Gopi Dasi Prabhu ki jai. Haribo. Just stepping in because Ananda Bihar Prabhu is at group and he asked if you do have time and if anyone does have any questions, if we could take some questions.
Yeah, please.
Is that possible, Achyuta Gopi Prabhu? Okay. So I saw that Ananda Bihari actually put a question at some point in the conversation. He was asking, why was the mother excluded? I'm assuming that's the mother where they were doing the kirtan. So perhaps you could start with that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Srivasa's mother-in-law. Lord Chaitanya was trying to cultivate a very, very specific mood. And at that point, it was not at all public. And in order to show just how exclusive this mood was, he was not allowing anyone in. Now, one would think, but shouldn't she get love for Krishna also? I mean, all of these things were happening in Srivasa's house. He does not actually exclude anybody. So at another time, and so many times this happens, what'll happen is Srivas is afraid of something. Nimai will come and mystically take care of it all. And as he comes, he says, now Srivas, offer me prayers. And Srivas offers him prayers. In so many different cases, even there's one day, he goes through the town and he hears someone speaking the glories of Lord Varaha. And so hearing the glories of Lord Varaha, hearing just that one word Varaha, he goes yelling, "Boar, boar!" He arrives, as he often does, sometimes at the house of Srivas, sometimes at the house of Murari Gupta, in so many different places, and he takes on the form of these various incarnations. Offer me prayers. And so he instructs Srivas Thakur in this way, offer prayers. And once he does, he says, now, bring your whole family. And he manifests forms and many, many wonderful manifestations in front of the whole family. And he gives all of his choicest benedictions to the entire family. So no one is excluded, even up to the 4-year-old niece of Srivas. Says, do you want to see something miraculous? And he's always, do you want to see something miraculous? I can even induce love of God within a child. So he tells her, you chant the name of Lord Hari. Say Hari Hari. And her name was Narayani. He says, and now cry in ecstasy. Happens immediately. And this wonderful Narayani becomes a celebrated Vaishnavi among all of the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the family does not get excluded, actually. Just at a different time, he happens to manifest his mercy. So I think that that's always hopeful, because even if you think, there's been some kirtan and I missed it, right? Mahaprabhu was here and I missed it. We're just 500 years out. You know, like I used to hear like 1492, like Columbus sailing the ocean blue and doing things. And like, 1486 though, like Mahaprabhu has appeared. It's so close. It should be in history books. Right? But what if? What if all the gold that Columbus was searching for, what if that wasn't exactly the gold? What if? What if? What if? Just a thought. So, even if we think, I've missed it, we never miss our chance. We never miss out on our blessings. And what I know about our Lord is, by hook or by crook, he will find some way to come find us and save us and wrangle us and yank us back.
Does anybody else have a question? If so, feel free to unmute or raise your hand. My question that I had, Achyuta Gopi Prabhu, was the phrase by hook or by crook. I always get confused by that. If you could kind of explain what that means, because I've heard it before, people saying like you could do bad things and Krishna will forgive you. If you could just clarify it just for...
Yeah, by hook or by crook, just by any means necessary. So we have a causeless unwillingness to serve. That's how Srila Prabhupada puts it, and my mom also. But Krishna has causeless mercy, right? And I think that mercy is more causelesser than our causeless unwillingness to serve. So even more causeless is Krishna's mercy. So he will find any method, even if it's deceptive, he will find a way to come and save us. Srila Prabhupada says, even if a drunkard is thinking that the taste of this liquor, Krishna says he is the essence of all tasty liquids. So even this liquor, I'm getting such enjoyment, that must be the taste of Krishna. He says eventually Krishna will come and he will engage. Krishna will come and reciprocate. And he will eventually clean out the heart and reform that whole person's existence. Say the holy name is so merciful like this, even more merciful than Krishna. Krishna will take a seat in the heart. Mahaprabhu will take a seat in the heart, but sometimes only after it's clean. You clean the heart first and then. But sometimes we're so powerless, how can I even clean my own heart? It's so buried. It's so underneath. I've been such a hoarder of anarthas within my heart, right? Such a hoarder of all the unwanted things, clinging to them, that my heart is so buried. I can't even find it to clear it out. The holy name, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the holy name becomes the best friend, because the holy name will do the work for us. The holy name will then clean out the heart that we can't even seem to clean on our own. And then invite Krishna to come and take the seat there. So this holy name incarnation of Sri Krishna is so supremely merciful. This by hook or by crook. We will find some way not to serve by hook or by crook. By whatever deception, whatever we have to tell ourselves, right? We will find a way not to serve. And Krishna will find a way to bless us anyway. How incredible is that? Even people engaged in the most sinful of activities, Krishna will find a way to bless them anyway. Even especially when we think they don't deserve it. There's so many people that we think don't deserve it. Krishna will find a way to bless them anyway. How many times did he speak with the Kauravas, trying to avert a huge war? Right? Peace emissary. He'll do anything. And somehow, like those Kauravas, we will still find a way to think, but you know what? I think I have my own plan. I'm going to stick to it. Let's see how it goes. So I've been wanting to declutter my heart from all of those unwanted things, and who better to take up that task than Lord Sri Nityananda, Lord Nityananda Ram, who is none other than Balaram, who with that plow, all of our acharyas and spiritual ancestors have said, with that plow, has the ability to till the soil of the heart, which right now is hard and barren and rocky and undesirable, and he can till it until it's fertile and soft and ready for planting seeds of the holy name, planting those seeds of faith there. The process is not fun, right? The process is not that great. But neither is anything else worth having. If we think about grinding chandan, which Chandan Yatra will be coming soon in India. If you think about the process of grinding chandan, that's not fun. Your hands get all cramped. They give you this little stone and they give you this thing, and you're like, how long? And you think you've been grinding for like 25 minutes, and this much comes out. This much. And then you get a place like Mayapur, and they're like, we're going to do it all the time. Grind all the chandan for our 7-foot-tall deities, whose heads are bigger than my body. Right? And then you have to, like, it's not a fun process, but that's what it's like clearing the heart. Right? We have this stone already. We try to take the sandalwood of the holy name, and then we try, and it's not fun. Our hands are cramping up, our body's cramping up. It doesn't feel great. It's a scraping process. It's grinding. But the result is the most rich, opulent, abundant, fragrant, pleasing, cooling offering that we could give to our Supreme Lord. So by hook or by crook, we will find some way not to serve, and by hook or by crook, Krishna will find a way to bless us anyway.
Our dear Ananda Bihari Prabhu is back. So we will then. I already asked your question that you put in the chat, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, but we don't know if
was it answered in a satisfactory manner? Yes. Bhima Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Is your process fun? What are you crying there, Bhima Prabhu? Shri Gopi, it was a wonderful class. I like the hoarder thing.
Yeah.
Hoarder of anarthas. Bhima Prabhu, what do you have to say? How's your process?
Haribol. Wonderful. It's like going to it and run over. Hey, hold on, Paula. Sorry. All I can say is a wonderful class. I will tell next Nityananda Triodicee next week, I believe. I will tell the story of the time I played Madai and knocked Nityananda upside the head with a bottle. So I think we don't have time for that now, but if someone reminds me next wonderful class on Nityananda, I will tell that story because it's a wonderful pastime where I got to play my innermost self, Madai. So I had no problem, as you can see, I had no problem looking like a drunken madman. So, and I scared the whole congregation. There was like 150 Indians there. And I just dove into the crowd like a drunken madman. Jagai and Madai both scared all the kids and everything. It was wonderful. I just enjoyed being my true self. So I don't know. Thank you for reminding me of that. It happened some years back, about 7 years ago. Who was playing Nityananda was Amarendra. I don't know if you people are familiar, devotees are familiar with Amarendra Das. He's a young man who's an unbelievable preacher. has Bhagavat completely memorized, Sanskrit, English, etc. And he's just a wonderful preacher. But he was very young at that time, so I thought I'd teach him a lesson. He was Nityananda and I was Madai, and I had a bottle. And I will tell the rest of the story next time. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, we can't wait. Okay, do we have any reflections, comments? Anybody? Okay. Srila Gopi, Devi, Dasi Prabhu ki jai. Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Spiritual hoarder ki jai. The process is fun. The process is fun. Cheerfully performed. So let's get to it. Let's get to it. We're all in this together. So it's going to be fun. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. Have a blessed day. Srila Gopi, Hare Bol.
Jai.